this is VidHead85, and thank you so much for joining me for this episode here. Today, I'm going to talk about Jubilee, and Jubilee has a show called Middle Ground, and it's one of my favorites because while I get to hear both sides of an issue, I like the ability to push back right away. So, in this liberal versus conservative gaze, the overall question is pride still necessary? And they also have the prompts. My verdict is flawed premise, but agree. The overemphasis on sex is troubling because it only comes up when you talk about gay men or lesbians. The openness about sex was a way to revolt against strict laws governing, pretty much repressing, of sexuality and gender outside of heteronormativity. Also, the queer community sticks out like a sore thumb in a very religious America, so starting from sexuality is always going to be dicey. And there was something that I meant to also talk about too with the fact that since they're so focused on sex, especially a lot of these religious people, they either can't or won't see that homosexual relationships, queer relationships, still have the same underpinnings that hetero ones do. For this one, I definitely agree. A push for representation isn't new, but is now being listened to. Diverse casting is a great thing. And when I saw a black male flight attendant, I literally cried. When I saw Static Shock, a black superhero, I was glad to see something that I've always wanted to see, me on screen. Queer people occupy posts in the federal government now, like Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg and Darren P. Gales, who's a first openly gay black man appointed to the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida. And we also have Rachel Levine, a transgender woman who is a 4-star general. When Stonewall happened, nobody could have imagined this. But it is equally important to see gay softball or volleyball, queer motorcycle groups, one where we can be amongst other queer people that don't just simply, that aren't all artsy. Because not every queer person is artsy. This one, it's a very hard disagree. The religious right doesn't care about the acronyms. They would force us back all into the shadows of society. I also feel that some people who are LGB that advocate for the removal of trans on or TQIA are privileged and white, who are used to being privileged and don't understand that queer liberation is tied together, along with sex, class, race, and gender. All liberation is tied together. For this one, I disagree. I could say that movies are too sexual today. I won't ever watch a movie, and I'm going to put forth a law that stops movies from being made. Now, someone would tell me that this is being really ridiculous, but this is exactly what Republicans are doing with drag shows. Kid-friendly drag shows do exist and are a great way to spend brunch or even an afternoon. I hate that conservatives are targeting drag queen shows solely for their disapproval of homosexuality. That point is where it begins and ends. So personally, I am attracted to men. So secondary sex characteristics of men are the ones is what I like. And I also like a nice butt, but I think that goes for a lot of people. But if we both were physically attracted to one another and we connect in the ways that definitely matter, I would say, of course. Then I would definitely say, okay, I think I am going to go and get a vasectomy because I don't want to risk pregnancy. being child-free, this is a question, or this is a conversation that I would have very early on. This one I vehemently agree with. LGBTQ history and Black history shouldn't just be taught in June and February, respectively. Yes, it's a time to emphasize the history since it is that month, but we should also find ways to incorporate that into broader history because it still is history. I also feel that LGBT subjects, of course, should be age appropriate, and we do have experts who can help us teach in an age appropriate way. But unfortunately, a lot of conservative parents will be a roadblock to. So this is where I agree, because it can be, but I just like the thought that it seems like the way that it's being phrased as if it's more difficult to find it in the gay community than it is straight couples. And let's face it, we do have your relationship style is up to you and your partner. And if you're both on the same page, you both discuss terms and conditions. It is something that has to go for both of you. And open relationships are different from polyamorous ones, and they will vary from couple to couple. They will always vary because people are different. That California is doing to educate trans men who are romantically and sexually attracted to cisgender men. And it is a program to help them to pretty much be safe and also have that knowledge to avoid pregnancy as well. So that is something that I feel when it comes to LGBT subjects, that's definitely one that I feel should be looked at, and we should teach that. So a couple of little things, some parting words here. I feel that Barrett was definitely easy on the eyes, and so was Clarkson. But Clarkson definitely, Barrett was an interesting one when he found out that Mario helped pass a law in Nebraska that banned gender-affirming care for under 18s. And for a second, I'm going to go to Ryan's clip when he talks about this. This is very important.
For these things. But to be clear, the guidelines are very specific about this is supposed to be the parent's decision with their kid, with their medical provider. What you did was rob all those families of choices. Your opinion, because you believe you know better than science, you know better than parents, you know better than people who even do know themselves, you're going to prevent them from having options because you personally have a problem with something that a couple of people and some other people you're aware of knew. None of them are statistically significant. Maybe you've got dozens of people you know of, hundreds. That's a teeny tiny little sliver. You will never know or know of all of these people, and yet you've decided for them, and shame on you for it.
I think that was very good, very, very respectful, a little bit personal, but you know what? I stand by the entirety of it. Also, speaking of Ryan, he was the MVP for the liberal side, Clarkson for the conservative side. They both admitted nuance, but Ryan was definitely the one who was like, take no prisoners. I think that the casting was good. I didn't outright hate anyone here, so I think that that's a really good testament to the casting. And I felt like this was a really good conversation being had on both sides. So I like this episode of Middle Ground episode. I do want to, I may do a watch through of it because it was just, I think it was a great way to have a civil debate, even though it got a little tense. It still was respectful. So I want to thank you for spending your time with me. I really appreciate it so much. Thank you.